Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. You've reached a special Rob's Ramblings. I wanted to talk a little bit about those prices are stupid. I feel like it's come up quite a bit lately, and part of it comes from three different places, I think. And I can understand some of them, right? And some of them I think really come from a place of just not understanding. So yeah, let's talk about that. Those prices are stupid. All right, so today it's a Rob's Rambling. Here we are. We're going to talk about those prices are stupid. And yeah, I've got some knives out here that people are going to say those prices are stupid about. I recently did a post about a pre-order that occurred, and I thought, you know, that's kind of cool. People are going to be interested, and it's a knife that's very popular, and it's the Hog House Model T version 2. And truth be told, I did a pre-order, right? So, and sometimes I get comments from people. And I get it. Sometimes the comments can come from frustration because the prices are so out of reach. And I was like that at some point. You know, I would see Metal Complex and other people bring out these zirconium, super fancy, expensive knives, you know, this $5,000, $10,000 knife that's just completely out of reach for me. And I used to be very frustrated by that. And then I realized, you know what? I don't think I would ever carry that knife. That's not a knife for me. It's not something I enjoy, right? And I kind of came to the realization that, you know, my collection are knives that I use, that I carry, that I enjoy. And sometimes that can seem a little high to some people, and sometimes other people it may seem a little low, and other people it may seem pretty normal. And don't get me wrong, I carry every one of these knives, but I'm not going to go out and whacking tree logs and branches with them. I have work knives for that. But these I do carry. I'll open letters, boxes, all sorts of stuff. But to say the prices are stupid, there can be some truth there, right? Sometimes things can be jacked up on the secondary market, and that's unfortunate. People taking advantage of that. And sometimes if a knife is really, really, you really want it, sometimes you'll say, I know that I'm paying too much, but I'm still going to pay it because I really want that knife. And yeah, that may be stupid, but it's supply and demand, and you really want it, they have it, and you're willing to pay because you want it, right? And so call yourself stupid or whatever, but you know you want it, and that's hard to get. And somehow some people are able to get those better than others. And that, you know, it's a bummer sometimes when that happens, but it happens. So when I hear that, I kind of tend to think, yeah, I mean, okay, that may be stupid. It's unfortunate. It's a bummer when people do that and take advantage. Sometimes that bites them in the end, right? You have knives you keep in your collection, you have too many of them, or they're not worth what you once thought they were worth, right? So that happens. You know, that could be something you can consider stupid. Sometimes people will price a knife, overprice it, right? And you're blown away by what the price is. Like, for instance, you know, this one right here, I think the Prince Customs here. This is the Protean. This sells on Prince Customs knives for like $745. Secondary market could be higher. The Lamium, I think this sells for, if I'm not mistaken, $720, $750, $780 or something like that. I don't know. Maybe $800 if you have some fancy stuff done to it or more. But this resells for $800, $900. You'll even see over $1,000 for it. Likewise with the ROSIE. I think the ROSIEs sell for, depending on which one you get, can be anywhere from $750 to $850 to $1,000, you know, depending on what they have on there. But secondary market, these things can go incredibly high. And for a while, they were really, really overpriced. Likewise with the skiff-made blades, you know, this can really be overpriced, but not as much because they're still not quite as known as some of the other blades, even though skiffs and the cage bearings are very well known. Brown knives, totally secondary market, really gets jacked up quite a bit. That's for sure, right? That's always interesting. The Koenig Arius is always one of those that certain versions of this are normally priced on the secondary market. Sometimes some versions are way underpriced, and then some are way, way above price. And I don't know what the secret sauce formula for that is. I just know I like carbon fiber, and I like this one, and that's why I have it. You know, I don't know what the variants are on that one. It's a nice knife. I love the action. I love the carry. I love the feel of this one. So that's why I have it in my collection, right? Holt Blade Works is one of those that was for a while, super hot, way overpriced, and then kind of like secondary went really low, but I think everybody was dropping them because they were trying to get some other things, and now it's back up again. So it's like They fluctuate. Rob Johnson's, like this one right here, is the cedar. He also has the cypress version 2 that just came out. And sometimes these are considered really overpriced by some people as well, right? So not exactly sure why, but some people do. And here you got the large Sabenza. This is one of those that in certain variations, I mean, they sell much lower in the secondary market, but certain variations they don't. For instance, I wanted the carbon fiber one, and I didn't know that this was a really difficult one to get, and I waited a long time for it, and Blade HQ had it, and so, you know, apparently that's a hot one, right? I didn't know that. And here's another one, Uldanov Knives, which is a Russian maker. Really, really like his stuff, and I like what he did, and I saw him at Blade Show, and his stuff really, to me, is, you know, it's everything I wish Shirogorov was, right? In the sense of functionality and the way the knife feels in my hand. This is more my aesthetic right here, as far as like Russian, you know, manufacturing. This feels like a different version of a Shirogorov, and I love it. I love it. So you can look at these and you can say, hey, these prices are really, really, really crazy. And sometimes I get people just getting really angry, really bitter. And I don't know if it's because they're angry because maybe they couldn't get one and they get really frustrated, because I got to that point. I got really frustrated for a while trying to find knives, like the brown knives. Very frustrated at these because I couldn't find it forever. And I really got very frustrated and bitter and angry about it. And I really was like I don't want one of those. And then one came up on Blade Bench and I was able to get it. And it wasn't totally crazily priced, you know, for secondary. And I thought, okay, let me jump on it. Unfortunately, I have a channel, and some awesome subscribers and channel members let me know sometimes when some things out, say, hey, did you know this is up there? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And so, yeah, that does help. And if I see something I know someone's looking for it, I do try to let them know as well, right? So that's why you have a little network of friends and people that you know. But I got frustrated. Because I thought, you know, the secondary market is eating me alive. I can't get it. I can't get in on the drops. You know, I get on the ROSIE drops for the XL. Never been picked once for one of those. I got on the drop for the brown. Never get picked for that. You know, and so I went in on a drop for a Javi Garcia custom slip joint. Never ever got picked for it, and then I win this one. And it's like the one that I would really, really want. Hand milled jig titanium. And I love this. This is the truly, truly custom one here. Right. So I love that. I love that. And I love the, you know, those things about these knives. And some people will be like, oh, that's overpriced. And for some people, yeah, that may be overpriced for you. It's something you probably don't need in your collection. I get it. But I would ask some of the same people, what do you have in your collection? What do you have that you own that some people would look at your stuff and go, man, that's really overpriced. That's way too expensive. Because I'm willing to put money on it that some of you guys have something in that line that's going to be way overpriced as well. And probably anybody else would look at it and go, that's ridiculous. Whether it's a car, whether it's, you know, maybe, you know, if the ladies or anybody else here watching, like my wife, she really likes purses, nice purses. She doesn't go for the cheap purses. And it's probably thanks to me, because I always wanted to buy her a really nice purse. And so she got accustomed to that, which is good, because those purses last way longer than any of the other purses she used to get. We'd always be throwing those out, right? Now she has purses that she can swap out probably for the rest of her life, right? So in that regard, I don't regret it, but we all have things that we really like. It could be anywhere from, if you're in the kitchen, your kitchen knives, to your pots and pans. It could be your car. It could be different things for your car. It could be your TV, your electronics, your stereos. Maybe you're into pins. Maybe you're into computers. Maybe you're into gaming systems. Maybe you're into your house and your yard and your landscaping. Maybe your lawnmower equipment. Maybe your power tools. Whatever they are, people will invest in things that they find value in, right? Now, granted, you may not have certain things because you're at a place in your life where you can't afford that. And that's realistic, right? Either you're young, early in your career, you had a career change that was unexpected, right? Something terrible happened in your life, you know, natural disaster, you know, God forbid, a breakup of relationships, a family breakup, whatever. Those are all horrible things, right? That can come along at the wrong time and really set you back. And I get that. You could have also made some bad decisions when you're younger in your life that carry with you, and it doesn't really allow you career opportunities and to work in certain places and to do certain things to make more money. I know people who are plumbers, electricians, who probably make way more money than I'll ever make. And so I don't think it has to do with education. It has to do, you know, with what you do with what you have. And When you have that, you will have something that you find a value. For me and for the knife community and for us, it happens to be knives, and we like collecting knives. Now, here's the thing about these knives. Here's my collection of things I really enjoy. And I've got a few more coming in, but there's going to be 20, 30, 40 different variations of people who will have a same list of knives, and they will be completely different. They will not like a single one that I have, and I will probably not like a single one they have, but they're all incredibly well made. They're all custom knives. They're all really nice, but it's value, because value is in the eye of the beholder and what you're willing to pay for it. And I say one thing, and I've said it all the time, and I really repeat myself when I say this, is love, buy what you love and love what you buy, right? So if you buy something you love, then you're going to love what you bought, and you're going to enjoy it. And that's something that's going to bring pleasure to you. Now, just straight up front, just so you all know, emergency comes along in my family, anything happens, I will sell every one of my knives. Every single one of these are not more important than my family. Family comes first, right? So if you suddenly see a massive sale on my stuff, you know something bad happened, right? And I need to move this stuff, and it's going to be for the sake of my kids or my wife or my family, right? So that's just how life is. If that happens, it happens. I hope it doesn't, because I love some of these knives. I'd like to be able to leave them, give to my kids. I have 3 boys, and I would love for them to each have a couple of these or a few of these knives, right? That really are meaningful to me. I don't know if they'll be meaningful to them in the future. They might be new, advanced, better steels, better milling, better processes. I don't know. But I think these are fantastic knives, right? And so they're worth it to me. And it took a long time to get to this place. And sometimes, you know, recently I had some Grail acquisitions that were recent into my collection. It would be this, and this one. Yeah, those would be the most recent Grail acquisitions that came into my collection. And I sold a bunch of my other knives. I had a bunch of what I would call really great production Chinese knives, and even some mid-tech, you know, American-made production knives. So I sold all that so I could get these, because these were I was wanting them more. You know, I always wanted a Lamia, and I didn't get it. Once I got a Lamia, I was like, okay, I get it. I understand. I understand the simplicity, but the perfect synergy of design, ergonomics, action, everything coming together. There's just something there. Now, understanding, why do these things cost more? Well, you know, I would never pay for that. I get it. You don't see value in this, but I look at these knives and I see value in every one of these. And you can say, well, you can go to get a Chinese knife that has that kind of milling, you know, Kubi will do that. And no, this is very different than what you would see in Kubi milling. First of all, this is done in the USA by a person, Steve Skiff, and Steve Skiff Jr., who does the Skiff cage bearings, which is almost in every one of these knives except for this one. And this one. These are the only 2 knives that don't have skiff cage bearings. Every other custom knife here has skiff cage bearings in them, right? So this is my number 1. This is the Grail above all Grails in my collection right now. So this is the Fugitive. Love this this knife, but there's so much in this thing that you don't see. You can see the stone wash, but it's kind of it's a stone wash, but it's a very smooth, almost polished stone wash with still a dull kind of finish to it, which is like a contradiction. It feels like a high polish, high gloss finish, but it's definitely a stone wash finish that doesn't reflect. And I love that. And the edge, beautifully sharpened, crazy sharp action. The flipper, it's a flipper only. And you'd think, well, that's only a flipper only. That's just not. If you're going to do a flipper and a flipper only, you better be really, really good at it. And a lot of these knives that are flipper only, they are really, really good at it. So let me just tell you that, first of all. The milling on here is not just, you know, a CNC. To run this, you can't make these scales at the same speed and rate and precision and perfection and polish as you could if you were like doing a Tempest knives for KC, like his knives, which I love. I actually have a Fractus, my favorite Tempest knives. I just got one recently. Super excited to have it. I believe it's made by Kubi, and the milling on there is phenomenal for production knife. But that milling is not going to compare to this at all. This scale will probably take the time of, I'm going to guess, probably at least maybe, I don't know, just throwing it out there. This is just an estimation, probably 5 to 10 of his knives, right? You could run 5 to 10 both side scales for 1/2 of these scales. And so there's the cost. And then you got to do this clip and making sure the precision is correctly. And then look at this. You even have this really flat side. So this is much slower and high polished, hand touched. You'll see all the corners. Everything's rounded. There's things that are done by hand. And then when you fit this together, these guys who love these knives, who made these designs, who know them so well, who Steve Skiff Sr. and even Steve Skiff Jr., you know, they'll know how this fits together. Brown knives, you know, you've got this whole design here as well, and it just fits so perfectly together. And he makes these himself, and he knows how it works and how it fits. You know, being an aerospace engineer and everything, he understands precision like that. And there's just something you feel in this. It's like kind of like, you know, you ever hear about Italians and mothers and really great chefs? They always cook with love because they love to cook. They love cooking, and what they cook they love, right? And so you can feel the difference. You can taste the difference. It's like you can feel the difference in these knives. Prince Customs here, a brand new one that I just saw recently, and then when I started getting my eyes on it and I got a hold of one, this is phenomenal. I mean, he's relatively new for me. Don't know how long he's been around, but love his designs, right? Rob Johnson's, you know, another guy who's just phenomenal, but they're very different aesthetics altogether, different aesthetics than the other ones here. Very different type of design, just like, you know, Joe here and Angie at the Holt Blade Works. Love this. This is got that beautiful acoustic and everything. And then you got custom Trevor Burger knives. I have two, matter of fact. I have the Urban XL, which is what was one of my first ones. Love this one. I actually had a production version of this first before I actually got the custom version, and I feel like that is just really phenomenal, right? It's a great, wonderful knife. So, excuse me. There's things in here that I find value. I know, for instance, Oz Machine Company, if there's any imperfection in these scales, they're scrapped. They're scrapped. Like in other places, they may just buff it up and try to cover it up. Not for him. You know, there's just you don't get the cover up thing. If there's something that's wrong, the anodization is not perfect on this. You know, it's going to be scrapped. It's not going to be used, right? If the black anodization that's done by Rob Johnson's by Nikolof's, right, who does all this stuff. You know, Rob Johnson's named after his great-grandfather or something like that. Knife makers and the step milling, none of that's perfect. You know, that doesn't get used, right? Those become seconds. Same with Chris Reeve knives. You know, these are not knives that you get with you know, defects and sort of shortcomings, right? They're inspected. They're hand inspected. Now, this is more, I would say this is probably mid-tech. It does have a lot of hand-on by really people who do a lot of manufacturing, but this is more mid-tech, I would say, for sure on this one. As far as mid-tech, what else? I don't know if Koenig, I don't know enough about that, but I know every one of these other ones, the designer and the maker of the knives, like Trevor Burger touched this. Oz Machine Company, he touched this. Holt Blade Works, they touched this. Koenig touched this, I think. Brown Knives, I know, touched this. Steve Skiff touched this. I know Javi Garcia touched the entire thing of this one. I know, I know his name. It's a long one, but Lamia, you know, SPK, he touched this. Prince Customs, he touched this, you know. And then, of course, Udonov, I know he touched this. I met Udonov, you know, he's hardly speaks English, but man, that's all right because he makes beautiful knives, and I'm okay with that, right? You know, I love his knives. We can use a translator if we have to, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy his knives, just like Nikolof's as well. You know, I love his knives as well. And you know, I just ordered something from Hog House Knives, and that's kind of what got me going on this thing. Was I posted the link, and I have to say, I replied to it, and I thought, I left a long reply, and I felt like this really would be a good rambling because it comes back to it. One of the things that I always do in my channel, now other channels are different, but my channel is this one. You can disagree with me 100%. I have no problems with that. You can think I'm an idiot. I'm okay with that. I don't have thin skin. But if you're going to not like something someone else says or does or whatever, you have to have a reason for it. If you don't like the ROSIE, tell me what you don't like. Maybe you say, well, it's too thin of a blade. I can't really. Okay, fair enough. The ROSIE's not for you. If you're looking for a thicker blade, this is definitely not a knife you'd want. It's too small. I've got Shaquille O'Neal giant hands. But fair enough. This is not for you. I get it, right? Those are fair things. Maybe you don't like this because you don't like fat carbon, or maybe you don't like the super skinny things, or you hate front flippers. Front flippers just, it's hard for you to work and you'd prefer. Fair enough, right? Those are fair questions. Maybe you really will never buy a knife with a flipper only. And then, you know, that does limit you from a lot of different knives, but you would never be able to use this one. This is a flipper only. skiff made blades is a flipper only. That would probably eliminate you from there as well. And then you get over here to the Lamiate, which is a fuller or a thumb hole flipper only, just like this one is a fuller flipper only, right? You know, I mean, this sort of have a little bonus flick right here. It's not really intentional, but you can do it. And then you've got this one from Uldanov Knives. You know, this is a top flipper only, and this may eliminate you as well from that. You may not like that. Those are fair things, but you say, why? It's hard for me to work. I've got an injury in my hand. It doesn't work for me. Every time I get it, it's very uncomfortable after a while. You know what? Those are all fair things. There's knives that left my collection because I couldn't use them. For instance, I had a Chrisree Tonto. Beautiful, probably the best looking Chrisree knife that they have out there. It was the Tonto version. Oh, look, I got tape all over my knife because I used my knife. Surprise. I had tape all over. I mean, I had the Chrisree knife. Loved it. Everything looked about it, but I couldn't adjust the detent. It was too hard. It had a radius milling right here. It wasn't flat chamfered. It was radius chamfered, which was really uncomfortable. Dug into my hand. It was super tight. They had this over travel kind of control thing here, and it wasn't screwed in. It was like it was put in there permanently. So I couldn't adjust it, and that made it very uncomfortable. And so eventually I ended up selling it. It just wasn't for me. I had a Herman Knives. Loved the Herman Knives. Beautiful knife. Everything about it. It was, you know, has a beautiful song, acoustics like a Holt Blade Works. Very different acoustics, but similar, right? It's still acoustic, but very distinct from each other. I could tell the difference very easily. The problem was it had a sharp edge back here, and it would dig into my hand. And I tell you, I would love flicking it, but then not even 5 minutes in there, it started hurting because the edge was just too pointy. And it had all this beautiful stuff done to it. I couldn't soften that off. If it was plain titanium, I might have been able to buff it out a little bit, but I couldn't. And so that knife, you know, it became a catch and release. I just quit carrying it because I would have it in my hand, play with it a little bit, and then I was like, okay, I just put it back. I can't deal with that, right? So you'll notice something about all my knives, even if they have a lanyard loop, it's rounded. This right here does not have a sharp edge. Even this, it looks like it comes up to triangle. It's rounded. It's very soft. It's very beautifully chamfered. There's no sharp edge there, and that's really important to me. Even right here with the Trevor Berger right here, this is not sharp at all. Matter of fact, Giant Mouse. I loved some of the Giant Mouse designs out there, but they always have a very harsh lanyard loop. It always digs into my hand. It's always very uncomfortable. It doesn't fit my hand well. Now, I don't know if it's the designers and they just love the way it fits and where it falls, and that happens to be really a big negative in my hand, but a positive in theirs. Fine. Then that knife is designed for another audience, and it's not for me. But that's why I don't have some of those in my collection, right? And maybe that's why you don't like some of these. Those are fair points. You can share that. You can go into those details and explain, because you know what? Here's the thing. I don't have the same ergonomics and size of everybody's hand that watches the videos. I don't. But you may have different ergonomics that people can relate to, and you can share those experiences, and they help them to make the right decision. Sometimes there's a knife they're really, really looking into, and if you have a similar hand, you say, oh, this really bothered me after a while. And you could be like, someone can say, oh yeah, that's a serious problem. One of the big things that I always have with knives, if the knife is a drop shut knife, right? If it drops, I have to be able to catch it on the choil or something where it's not cutting my finger. I have a lot of knives I really, really enjoyed, but they would drop and they'd cut my knuckle. They'd cut my finger here, they'd cut my knuckle. And I kind of came to the point that if I couldn't fidget with it and it kept dropping on my knuckle, that knife was kind of like a done deal. Like here, this has a little flipper, right? It catches right there. That works really well. Likewise over here, this one, I was worried it's going to drop, but it doesn't. It drops right there on the choil really, really, really well. The Lamia, I was worried about this one too, but this one drops really, really, really well as well. Then I was worried about the skiff-made blades. It drops right there really, really, really well as well. And so for me, that made it very reasonable for these knives. This is very important because I will fidget with these not looking very regularly. You can ask my wife. She gets very annoyed with me after a while. But that's a very important part of my enjoyment of a knife, right? If I can't enjoy that knife, I can't enjoy the fidgety goodness of it, then to me it's not really to be enjoyed. And so that's why these are next level, because the ergonomics are just so beautifully and so smooth and you can feel everything about it. The action, the feel, the acoustics, the contouring, the shapes, the lines, everything working together, how it functions, to me is a joy. And that's why I'm willing, they are worth more to me. The milling pattern on here, the little different details on here, he has two ceramic detent balls on there to line that up with little ramps on the blade. That's a big deal. has ramps on these blades as well, and to have that beautiful action is important. Likewise over here, to have this beautiful action and have that beautiful drop that's just buttery smooth is absolutely important. And a conic, all conics have some very unique acoustic and sound, even with the carbon fiber scale, because I had a mini Arius, and that was different as well. Likewise over here, you can catch these. That makes it very enjoyable. Slip joint is different. Slip joint is all about the walk in, the talk, and enjoying that blade, and can you use it? And that's what this is. Beautifully rounded, works really great in hand, and believe it or not, this is technically a hollow grind. You barely see it, but it is technically a hollow grind. But slip joints are a whole different game. To me, I usually carry 2 knives. I'll have a slip joint in my pocket, in the bottom of the pocket, in a leather sheath, and then I'll have a pocket knife, a folding knife that I carry. And then sometimes I'll have a fixed blade along as well. But that's how I enjoy my knives. That's how I enjoy these knives, and what they bring me pleasure, right, is to be able to flick them, and then also to be able to do, like, left-handed, oops, I'm doing this on camera here, left-handed reverse flick. Those are important things for me. But I find value in all the little details, all the little nuances, things that are executed so perfectly and so well, right? That's what I find in these knives, and that's what brings value to me. Now, some people are like, this is it. This is the only knife you ever need. This is perfect. The Chrisree fans sometimes are as bad as the Cold Steel fans, are as bad as the Buck 110 fans, right? To be truthful, but it's an excellent knife. I'm glad I have one in my knife. I really like the Sebenza, the large Sebenza, the best. I think the Inkosi looks really cool. I like the Umnans on it if it could change some things, but it didn't work, right? The Ergonomics. So if it becomes uncomfortable, I lose value. And there's some knives people will show me that they're amazing. They are phenomenally milled. The creativity is phenomenal, but they have no value to me because they're uncomfortable, and they don't pull me in. They don't lure me in with their aesthetics, right? And some of these will not lure other people. And so that brings value, is how that pulls you in. Granted, that can be very, very subjective. It's not necessarily an objective. Now, objectively, materials here, there's a lot of costs and things that are involved. The milling, anodization. Some of this milling is very contoured, very shaped. Those cost extra. Some of the, black mill anodization, that absolutely costs extra. The step milling on the blade itself, that's an absolute extra expense. You'll see that on the Lamia. You'll see that on the cedar. You'll see that on Hog House knives as well, right? This one doesn't have it, but this is MagnaCut. They also make these in M398. So those are all very, very interesting. But here, this is where I'm going to come back to. Just because you don't like it, because you think it's too much, maybe you can't afford it, maybe you had it and you had a bad one. Sometimes people will have a bad one. Literally a bad one. I mean, these guys are not perfect, and they sometimes will have a bad one. Maybe you bought it in the secondary market. Somebody screwed it up. That happens too. People will mess with knives. They don't have any business messing with knives. And you get a dud. You get a bad one. You get something that didn't pass QC. You get something that maybe just wore out, because sometimes austenites and carbides and things that develop in steel can do weird things, right? It's not a perfect formula. We can't get down to the molecular and make every molecule line up perfectly every time. That's just not how that works. So if you don't like that and you think it's stupid, fine, but give a reason why, and tell me why you think it's stupid for you. Just because you think it's stupid for you, guess what? Doesn't make it stupid for everybody. You don't have the ultimate opinion about this. I don't either. I tell people when I review and I look at knives and things I like, I try to go, I always try to take, what is your intended audience? Because I've recently reviewed some really great knives, but they're really small. They were too small for my hands. But I still recommended them because I felt like the caveat is, if you like small knives, or if you have smaller hands, I think you will love this, and that's why it's recommended. If you have bigger hands or big meaty fingers like me, you may want to think twice about it. And that's how I look at it. Still well made, still a great knife. So that's a fair point. Now, if there's some things where we have safety concerns, sharp edges that I think at some point or another are just going to be uncomfortable, I will point those out. I have had some knives, some really expensive knives that came in and the blade couldn't center. It had blade rock. It had pivot blade rock. Yeah, it had pivot lash. There was so many things wrong with it that I couldn't do the review. I had to send it back and said no. Did an unboxing and that was it. And it was not a good unboxing. I did that with one knife with one particular company who let me review a newer version of that, and they fixed everything, right? So I'm fair about that when it comes to certain quality controls. Like if you can't get a blade centered, if it's always off center, if you can't get good action opening and closing, that's a big deal. If you can't get it to lock up quick, those are to me more objective in analysis as opposed to subjective, right? But when you look at aesthetics and shapes and designs, that's very subjective, right? Very, very subjective. Sorry, I got dust all over my knife. It's very much shows up on a black blade, on a black anodized scale. But those are all subjective. But you can't just call it stupid because you don't like it or you don't like the manufacturer, right? There's some people I don't care for, but that doesn't mean I have to dislike what they make, right? I review knives. I look at knives. I enjoy knives. Sometimes good people makes a knife a little more enjoyable, but ultimately I look at a really well-made knife and I want to focus on that. I don't want to focus on other objectives, right? So calling something stupid in my channel is not really allowed. That is something that I go very much against. I'm very, very much opposed to. So in looking at this, calling something stupid just because you think it's too much, when you don't maybe really know what you're talking about, I would disagree. Some people can say, well, this Oz machine knife shouldn't be $850. I mean, this is a $400 or $500 knife. I mean, there may be some justification for it, but then you also have to take within that the costs that are also incurred in order to get this quality of knife, right? It's not just this one particular perfect product. To get to this level, you have a percentage of materials and assembly that reaches this level of perfection. You don't always get 100% of all your materials, all your assemblies to get to this level. You may lose 20, 30%, and that's called, that's called shrinkage or overhead costs that you build into the cost of a knife, right? Those are things. You also have to have R&D and development and machinery and things that cost to make this. To have this milling and this perfect pattern for it to be perfect on both sides, not to be off, not to be offline or anything like that. That takes extra cost, to have this perfect purple fat carbon scale here that doesn't have any giant voids, because, if with anything with carbon fiber, sometimes you can get a nice piece of carbon fiber like this and you can have some big voids in here. And some manufacturers will just just assume that's just part of it, right? Custom makers will look for a very specific piece and they will literally, they may use 4 to 5 to 10 times as much material to get a number of scales that others would, because they need it to be a certain level of perfection, right? So that level of perfection, in order to get there, costs. There's extra things. This anodization right here. If anything is messed up on this, to get the exact same color anodized on both sides, that's really important. Joe does phenomenal stuff. All his hardware, everything matches. To get to that level is really important. And then for it to fit together perfectly like that, I mean, he may have, he may lose a blade or two or scale or 2 or 3 or 4, right? Over here, Proteon, made by Prince Customs, this is a beautiful hollow grind. Hollow grind is always more risky because you get a very thick place, and thinner the blade is, you can have warpage and all sorts of stuff and chipping. So these are all things that you have to deal with that incur costs on some of these knives. And so to say that's stupid, it's overpriced, I think sometimes doesn't understand the process that's incurred. Also, these are small batches. These are smaller companies. None of these are, it's not Benchmade. It's not Hogue Knives. You're not looking at Riot or Benchmade, Beztech or anything like that. Those places have much larger facilities, right? Kershaw, they may pump out 5,000, 10,000 knives, where these guys may pump out 5 or 10 knives, right? At the same frequency, if you will. And especially if he's using zirconium, Damascus, Mokutai, or any of the fancy stuff, he's using Damasteel, Chad Nichols, materials, and some of that stuff that occurs, and that really requires a level of expertise. As well, you got to make sure, like MagnaCut's heat treated to 60, 63, 64, which is really what all these guys should strive for, because this is MagnaCut, this is MagnaCut, this is MagnaCut, this is M390, MagnaCut, RWL 34, 20 CV, I believe. Yeah, 20 CV. LMAX steel over here. And then you've got CPM 154, which is the crucible powdered version, M390. Here you have MagnaCut, yeah, MagnaCut on this one. And then over here you have, I believe, S45 VN blade steel. And so each one of these, there's different heat treats. There's different things you have to keep in mind. Things you can do. Then also to get to certain levels, like for instance, having this beautiful finish on this blade and it's somewhat polished with the step mill. This is RWL34. So that takes a little extra work to get to there, right? That's a lot harder. Just like over here, look at Joe's. This is a beautiful stone wash, but it's a polished stone wash. You can get very reflective. I can see my face on this. That's pretty cool, I think. So there's something there that you don't always get. You don't understand the extra costs that are involved. I know I'm speaking to the speaking to the choir, as they say, right? But there are some people who just totally insist and say that's stupid, and I get it. You may feel it's stupid. You may not pay that price. Hey, guess what? Then some of this content and some of these knives are not for you. They're not for you. But here's the reality. I've seen so many people who will say, I will never spend $100 on a knife until they do. Then they'll say, I'll never spend $200 on a knife until they do. They'll say, I'll never spend $300 on a knife until they do. Then they'll say, I'll never spend $500 on a knife until they do. And then they'll never spend $750 on a knife until they do. And they'll never spend $800 on a knife until they do. They'll never spend $1,000 on a knife until they do. And I'm at that point where I've broken the $1,000 mark a few times, but I don't go higher than that for me personally, because every knife I carry. Some people will go higher because they have collection pieces. When you start getting a little bit higher than that in certain manufacturers, there's extra things that they add to the knife. There's extra Damascus, there's extra fancy stuff that they put on there, abalone inlay, special carbon fibers, there's special pivots and screws and other fancy stuff. Damascus type steels, Dama steel, Chad Nichols, Las Vegas, Alabama Damascus. These are all fancy Damascus steels. Some people will make their own. They'll do Sanmai kind of blade steels where it's ZDP 189 in the middle, and then two steels on the steel covered on the outside. So those are all very, very different, right? And so those add extra costs. But right now that's where I'm at, right? I've been looking at a few new customs, and there'd be ones that I would probably carry, and they could potentially bring me over $1,100, maybe even $1,200 range. But I have to be comfortable with that point that I would carry them, because as I would, these knives, when I carry them, I realize I can scratch them, I can bump into them, but I'm okay with that. Because I want to enjoy my knives. My knives are not just just to look at. I'm going to be careful when I'm carrying these guys as opposed to some of the other ones, because I have some other ones I can beat up more readily on and not worry about. So if I'm traveling far, I may not bring these along just because I don't want to damage it or be stuck somewhere where I have to use one of these for some hard use, right? Now, I have a couple of hard use that I have a McNeese Mac 3.5. It's a $600, $650, $700 knife, right? It could probably well be in here. It was well in my upper range knives for the longest time, but I beat the heck out of that knife. I use it for hard use all the time. I would do the same with my Chrisree large Sabenza. I do the same with my Hinderers. There's certain I do the same with my 80-20. Here's one. Got the original goat scales on here, USA made. Put the clip on there. This is USA made 80-20 full flat grind with original goat custom scales with extra weight relief. This knife then now becomes, we're looking at 500. We're looking at $750, about $800 knife right here, at least with also put skiffs in there and everything. So it's over $800 knife right here. But I would hard use this in a heartbeat, no problem. I've used this. So it's nothing is a Grail collection piece that I'll never use. Like my clips, my Rick Hinder clips. I like this one and I do use it. You can actually see it's very well used, and I like this knife. But that's what I do with my collection pieces, right? They are not just for aesthetics. They're not just to look at. They're part of what I enjoy. And you can say that's stupid, and that's okay, just because maybe you wouldn't spend that kind of money on stuff like that. I get it. I kind of feel like that with flashlights. I have a couple of flashlights, really good flashlights. I enjoy them. I don't have a need to get extra flashlights. I carry a flashlight all the time, as much as I carry a knife. But I'm not into flashlights. I'm the same with pins. I have a couple of pins that are really nice. There's my tactile knife pin. I still have my fancy pin from college, my Mont Blanc that I got when I graduated. I don't think they even make this color anymore, but I still have those, and I have 2, and that's it. Some people may have 2 really fancy knives like that they carry. Matter of fact, this is my first time Damascus anything. It's a little time Damascus pin right there. I did buy another tactile turn pin recently because it's a cool new design, and that pulled me in. It was a completely different type of lever, so we'll see. There'll be a future unboxing of that. But that to me is stuff that I don't get drawn into. It doesn't pull me in as much as knives do. I love knives and their aesthetics. And so for me, this stuff is not stupid. This stuff is exciting. It's the innovation, the engineering, the design, everything that I go through, the metallurgy, the science behind, pressure, momentum, torque, force, and all the different things that you create this. So if you do CAD or any sort of engineering, mechanical engineering, you know that there's just so many elements. You have metal fatigue, you have force impact points, you have, basically steel structure that could break down and crack and break, because inside each of these blades, there's carbides, and then there's austenites that make up the structure, and depending on how they disperse, and then the powdered particles in there as they crystallize in the steel can fatigue, the knives can bend, but there's some point they break, the bonds break and they crack, and depending on how that is, that's why some blades will bend really well, and some blades will just snap, they'll break. And that's also part of the cool science of, like, for instance, Maximet or Rex 121 steels. Those, you drop them, they can shatter on the ground. MagnaCut is super, super tough. 3V is super, super tough, right? So those are all tough steels. I love that. I love that stuff. That to me adds value. That's exciting. This is a long video, so if you stayed this long, you're enjoying my rambling, but I apologize, but I really had to get something out. I'm not trying to direct at anyone, tell them they're stupid. I want people to say, if you come in here, just tell me why you don't like that. But you don't have the right, not in my channel, not my forums, not my comments. You don't have the right just to say someone is stupid or that's stupid. You don't, okay? I don't even have the right to say that. There's many times I wanted to. I'll be honest with you. I want to tell people they're stupid. But I don't, because that's disrespectful, right? And that also doesn't understand what they value. And it doesn't mean that you value what you value any less, because you can still value what you value very well. But you know what? I can share with you why I value some things, what I enjoy about it, and how I make this work. There's people who've never been able to front flip a knife, and I've done some videos, and I've showed some people, hey, do this, and next thing you know, they're like, man, I love front flipping. This is so great, so easy. This is so fantastic. Now look at this. I can even do my the front finger, the pointer finger, index finger kind of front flip here. Oops, sorry. I'm now not holding it right. Oh, sorry. Now I'm not doing it right because I'm trying to talk and do that at the same time. There we go. But there's things you can do that you're like, oh, this makes it exciting because you can do things like that, right? People enjoy that stuff because you open up new doors for them. But that's not stupid. I'm not going to call people stupid. You can't call people stupid here. You may not think it's worth it, but guess what? A knife is worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And it's not worth it to you, fair enough, but it's worth it to other people. And just because you don't find value in it doesn't mean they don't find value in it. Likewise, there's things you find value that other people do not find value. So, I know there's some people who love Buck 110. Love the Buck 110. I've reviewed the Buck 110. It's a cool knife. I don't love it. People who love cold steel, they love cold steel. You gotta get a Recon 1, Gyros, gotta have the Recon 1 pocket sword. No, not for me. I reviewed it. It's cool. It's big. It's a big giant. It's a pocket sword. Not for me, right? That's okay. That doesn't mean it's not for you. It just means it's not for me. So, but that comes back to also ignorance. If you don't understand the manufacturing process, that's one thing. Two, if you haven't held these knives, I never understood what was the big deal about the knives. Like ROSIE was one of the first knives that somebody loaned this to me, and then they allowed me to buy it because they actually had some extra ones. They bought an extra one and won in a lottery. Said, do you want to buy this? And this happened to be the exact one I wanted. And this is what opened the door to me. I got the knife, I've held it, and I was like, wow, this is super light. And then I flicked it, and I literally got goosebumps because I was like, that is like something I've never felt before. The action, the deployment, the satisfaction, the crispness, and everything, how it works like this is just, it's another level. I've never felt that before. I don't care how good of another knife is. This is just absolute perfection in so many ways. And I was like, wow, wow, wow. And then you get to compare that to another knife, and you once you handle it and you regularly feel, you know, it's the same thing when people who are musicians, they can hear someone play a cheap $35 guitar, and then they'll play a Martin or Taylor or really fancy, custom guitar or something like that. And you can hear the richness of the sounds. You can tell. Now, people who don't listen to music normally, maybe don't really have good headphones, they wouldn't pick that up. But you can tell the difference between good instruments and a bad instrument. Now, a great musician can make a bad instrument sound way better than it should, but it still cannot sound as good as a really fantastic instrument can. There's a reason why Stradivarius violins are worth millions of dollars, right? They produce a sound like nothing else. There's a reason why Martin guitars, they're handmade USA guitars and handmade Taylor guitars, and some of the other handmade guitars here in Austin, Texas. There's a company, I can't remember their name, but they're just phenomenal sound. The richness of the sound is amazing. That's the same with a custom. There's acoustics, there's action, there's everything about it that just works together. There's things that the designer, everything is able to bring together in a synergetic way that just blows you away. So I can't convince someone of this unless they experience it. And the best way to experience this is to have a friend who has a really good knife and try it. Go to a blade show and experience it with knives. Buy a knife that you really like, and maybe you try your first really higher end knife, and you're like, wow, that's really amazing. And I can just tell you, it gets better. It gets better. It really does. There's knives that are even better than these guys, and I'm not ready to pay that money. I'm not ready for that. I mean, okay, so here's one, Peter Carey Designs. I have a WE Knives version of his. It's a production version of Peter Carey Design. This is the WE Knife version. It's a production. This is the best production version of his designs I've ever felt. This is called the Nitro OG, and there's also the Nitro as well. That's a smaller version of this, but this Nitro OG is by far the best. And I handled one of his custom knives at Blade Show, Texas. And I asked if I could touch it. It was underneath glass. He allowed me because I had my camera and all that stuff. And so I did. And I got to tell you, wow, just wow. Now, of course, it was $5,000 at least. That was the bidding was up to. And I understood why. But wow, just wow. I'm not ready to spend that kind of money because I don't think I'd carry that kind of knife. And so I wouldn't buy it if I can't carry it. If I was given it as a gift, yeah, I would probably keep it. Any gifted knife to me becomes valuable. But because of the connection to the people and the gift, right? That's where it becomes valuable. But this right here, his Peter Carey design. I mean, I knew that there's next level even above this. I saw Prince Customs. They at I think the Makers Syndicate and Blade Show West. They had some really really fancy versions of this, and they looked just next level. Koenig had some knives that were just next level, and you can tell they are next level. Brown Knives had some next level knives that were probably even I know Skiff has some phenomenal knives with some Damascus zirconium. They're just really phenomenal. I get it. I saw at Blade Show West, the Sultan, Javi Garcia had made one with Damascus scales, Dama steel. It was wow. But it was $1,800, $2,400, $2,500. I forget, whatever it was open bid. But that's I'm not there. I can't carry that. I can't afford that to carry that. I would have to be at a different level in my income for that. But I would love to carry it. If I did own it, I would carry it. I would carry it probably more cautiously, but I would still carry it, right? So that to me are knives that bring value. And that's where I see the value. But you only know that when you experience them. You won't know that. I saw this knife. I looked at this. This looked to me like, oh, it looks like any other knife. Not really boring. At Blade Show Atlanta, I saw these and I thought, oh, those are interesting. I saw his top of the line. I mean, it's beautiful. I had white twill carbon fiber, whatever you call it, that white carbon fiber, that twill pattern. I love it. Beautifully done. I mean, it looked like the Dr. Death, Shir Goroff collaboration that he did with, I forget the other guy, but it was phenomenal. And I got to touch that. Now that was even better than this, but I got to handle one of these and I thought, man, if I had more money at the Blade Show, I would have bought it there. And then I saw this available at PVK and I was like, okay, And, I could sell it. So I did. I bought one, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I did. But I wouldn't have known that had I not handled this. And a lot of people are going to look at this, and they're going to go, well, that's just a basic design, blah, blah, blah. As soon as you handle one of these, you're going to be like, oh, okay. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know who like the ROSIE doesn't appeal to me. It's kind of like the Spyderco effect, right? They look at it, doesn't appeal to them, wasn't really for them. And then they handle this, and they're like, I can't put this down. There's just a beautiful crispness and actuation and beautiful, just buttery smoothness to this knife that's just so perfectly designed and ergonomic in the hand. It's just so comfortable. You don't know it until you experience it. Just like this, the Urban. Now, I bought the production version from Urban EDC to Urban LC, and it was a production version of the Trevor Berger's design, small one, and I loved it. And I did a few things to it, made it even a little bit better. The clip was weird. This is the production version, and put skiffs in and made the tuning a little. It was really stiff, and it was really, really nice. And I was like, man, this is what I would have done. Then I saw this available, and I saw it in the purple fat carbon. I was like, oh, that's just gorgeous. And I saw this hand satin hollow grind finish, and it was beautiful. And I thought, okay, I got to do this. So I did. I ordered it, and I got it. And this was even better than I could imagine. And I could tell there was a difference, an absolute difference between the two. It was night and day, absolute night and day. So you don't know that until you experience it. That's the other thing. Now, you may experience some knives, and there's certain things you only look for in knives. And so some of these things may not have value to you. Some people love that super buttery, smooth action of this knife. I tune mine so I can actually drop shut it and flip it, right? I do that with mine. And to some people who have Chrisree knives, it's like anathema, it's, blasphemous, right? Other people who love this, they love the flicking of it, but they would never do the flipper. This flipper is maybe not for them, but also the flipper thing here is if you put your hand up here and you do this, it's hard to flip. If you hold it just right, and you put your pressure here, it actuates really, really nicely. But you have to know that. Every knife is a little different, right? Just like over here, this one is fantastic. If you're up here, present has a beautiful flip. If you try to do a push button, it's not as comfortable, right? That's just how it works. Just like over here, this flipper works really beautifully, but every one of them is a little different right here, right? They all have a way for you to enjoy them. So you will say it's not worth it until you get into it, and then you try it, and then you say, I wouldn't spend it until you do. That's what I'm going to say. I mean, that's if you ever decide to go into that realm. If you ever like knives and try nicer knives. If you have always carried a Milwaukee little, flipper, whatever thing, plastic little resin, holding a little razor blade kind of thing, then you'll never know, right? You'll never know, and that you'll be happy with that. And if that's where you want to be, then that's fine, right? You're perfectly okay with that. I would say, be okay with that. But that doesn't mean you get to judge people who are here. You don't. Not my channel, not my forums, all right? And you don't. You just don't. I don't get to judge that either. Just like sometimes I get really upset when I see people who have lots of money and have really fancy versions. My dream knife of this one, if I ever had the money, is I would want the Ghost Damascus scales. I want Damasteel polished. I want, all the black hardware, zirconium hardware. There's just a perfect, Joe has a picture of it on his Holt Blade Works. It is the dream knife I would love to have of this. It is. But it's outside of my range, outside of my budget. And I'd be afraid I wouldn't carry it, but I want to carry it, right? But those are grails. We all have grails that we shoot for, and there's grails that we may never get, right? And I realize that. These are my grails that I've acquired, and I enjoy, and I appreciate, because I carry, and I regularly use them, right? So I'm okay with that. But you don't get to say that with some new knife designer like Hog House and the Model T or the Vela. You don't get to say that about, some of the other knives that are out there. You just don't until you've experienced it and you tell me why it doesn't work for you. But just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean it doesn't work for somebody else, right? It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't. I'm sorry. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. We can agree to disagree. But at least on this channel, that's where I stand. I'm always going to have you always be respectful of everybody. You don't get to say it's stupid. I wish prices were cheaper. I wish inflation wasn't there. I wish things didn't go so high. I wish certain things weren't in such demand. I wish, the all the really uber cheap production overseas didn't drive America prices such a wide gap, so people are less inclined to buy USA made, and especially people spend more money on the cheaper stuff. I have noticed the more I've experienced these knives, the less of the cheaper stuff I buy, the more of the USA. I'd rather get one knife as opposed to 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 of the other knives. So that does change my buying perspective a bit, right? It doesn't mean I can't appreciate a good production knife. I mean, I have several. There's a Bird Blades over there. There's a Vero Engineering that I really like. There's what did I get recently? Tempest Knives came out with that Fractus. I really like that one. There's a brand new company. Well, it's not brand new. They've been around. But a Ferro Monster came out with their Aurora Rays. That's a really great knife. You know, those are all production Chinese-made knives. I really like them. And they're great. They're fantastic. And I do like to carry them. It doesn't mean I can't appreciate them. But it doesn't mean, you know, because I can get a $300 knife that's really well made. There's a difference here. And I value this. You may not. That's okay. And you can tell me why. But it doesn't mean that I'm stupid. And I'm not going to say that you're stupid. This applies to if you're like one of these people, buy only USA. You can't buy any Japanese. You can't buy any Chinese. You can't buy any other countries. You can't even buy, you know, from Africa, whatever. If you're one of those people, you still can't say those people are stupid. Still got to be respectful in this forum. Absolutely in this channel. You don't get that right. No one gets that right, in my opinion. You may agree with him. You may strongly agree with him. You may have some good reasons to disagree with him. But you don't get the right to call someone stupid and to disparage them, to be rude, right? To be disrespectful. But we can have conversations about it. Maybe people can learn some new things. You know, maybe I can understand why, you know, I mean, here's the thing. Here's one of those things. This guy still sells these for, what are they, like $720 or something, or $7 whatever. I mean, you think about the cost of some of these other knives. This is selling this for $750, $780. As good as this one is, I know on the secondary market, completely jacks it up. Like this one as well. This is $745. You know, I saw a recent drop of the ROSIEs here. Now, they didn't have all the fancy polished milling and everything, but they're going for $750. I mean, that's a great price. Secondary market, they're way, way inflated, right? So how can you do that? And then some of these other ones are that, you know, like this was rather expensive, and I probably overpaid for this one. I got it DLT trading. Looking at it, I don't know enough about Koenig, what makes one Koenig expensive and another in processing, but this looked cool. I like the look of it. I like the carbon fiber. I said, you know, I want this. And so I decided to get it. And I'm glad I did, because I love everything about it. It fits my hand really well. I had a mini. Mini was too small. This works really well for me. And, you know, if you got big, meaty hands, big hands, I'd say get the full size. Now, if you got a mini, they do, you know, a lot of people offer flipper delete, or you can, I think, Koenig is going to do some flipper deletes. That makes perfect sense to me, because that would be better on that. But then you lose the flipper part. And to me, I enjoy multiple deployments. I enjoy multiple deployments on a knife. I like to be able to flip and reverse flick and, you know, use the fuller thumb hole kind of thing. So that adds more enjoyment in a knife for me personally. Okay. But again, I am really rambling on. If you've stood around this long, you must either be falling asleep, be stuck where you can't change the channel, or maybe I struck a chord with you. Maybe you can agree with me, or maybe you're replying to me and thinking I'm completely wrong, and that's okay. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear where you stand on this. I'd love to know, you know, who knows, maybe my opinion of this will change in a couple of years, 5 years from now. I don't know. I know it's changed in the last 5 years from where I was before, for sure. And I think I have a different perspective on that. I don't know if I'll ever get into that crazy next tier level stuff. There may be a knife here and there that if I ever run across, I would like to have in my collection and enjoy. But again, I enjoy my knives by carrying them. And so I have a conflict there. I have a little struggle there. There's some knives that I think would be amazing to get, but I think I'd be at risk of not carrying it. And so then I wouldn't get it. You know what I mean? Because I also have a rule that if I don't carry it, if a knife is in my collection and I don't carry it, it's a catch and release. I'll sell it. Because if I don't carry it and I can't enjoy it, I'll let somebody else enjoy it, right? That's where I stand on those. So anyways, this was in response to a post I made and a reply that I got to someone. And maybe that person has a different perspective. But what I did challenge that person to do is give me a reason. Explain yourself. You don't just get to call that stupid, that knife stupid, someone stupid for buying that knife. You don't. Sorry, you don't. And here's my rules. If you keep doing that, I'll delete your comments. If you come back and you're still rude, then you get banned. And that's just where I stand, because this community is about positive celebration of knives, right? You're not going to be out here being disparaging. We're not going to get into controversy. We're not going to talk about certain things that might, we're not going to dog anyone, right? You may not agree with certain things, but we're not going to dog people with anything like that, right? So that's where I stand. That's where I choose this channel to be a positive channel, to be a happy channel. And maybe that's why some people liken me to Bob Ross a little bit, because I always find something enjoyable, happy about a knife to enjoy, and I'm not going to stop doing that. So, and I don't take the time out to get into controversy and to get angry about things. I may get annoyed about it, and my annoyance, when I think about it and I step back, is more of a place to say, okay, everyone's opinion is valid as long as you're respectful of other people's opinion and you communicate logically where you come from. You stop doing that, you're disrespectful, that's no good, right? All right, so that's kind of where I stand on this. I know it's long. Man, if you're here, God bless you. Appreciate you. If you skip through it, I understand too as well. Or if you put me on super fast speed, I get it. Hey, if you found this content fun, interesting, worthwhile, or informative, would you please consider hitting that like button down below? And if you've already hit that like button, would you please consider hitting the subscribe button also down below? Subscribing and liking the channel really helps out the channel, the videos, allows me to produce more content, do more things, ultimately even do more things for you guys. So thank you. Thank you to every one of you guys who watch the videos, who likes the videos, who comments, who watches the live stream, who participates, who's part of everything. I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you. If you haven't already, maybe hit that notification button down below as well, so you can be notified of future content. And a big shout out to all my channel members out there. Thank you. I appreciate you. You guys are amazing. I appreciate everything about you out there. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make this more enjoyable for you, something you would like to see for the channel members. I would love to see what brings value to you guys, since you're so generous in your support of the channel. I would love to hear that, because I figured probably only channel members will be this long into the video and listen to this part, or you're stuck. But with that being said, I appreciate you. And I do a couple of really nice things for my channel members. I do a once a month members giveaway. It's very exclusive. It's not just a budget banger giveaway. It's usually a nicer knife that I give away. I want to make sure, because you guys have been so generous to me, that I'm generous back to you, and I do a generous giveaway. 2, I also, every brand new channel member, I make sure I send you a channel sticker. If you email me with your name and address, I'd love to mail you a channel sticker to say thank you. I write a little note how much I appreciate you and say thank you. That's my 2 ways to do that personally. There's other things, special content, early release, all sorts of other stuff that we do, but just want you to know that. And yeah, so thank you to all you guys out there. If you haven't already, check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.